You are not the driver of your own life. You are the passenger. You believe you are making choices, that you decide who to love, what to fear, and when to erupt in anger. You are mistaken. There is an intruder living inside your home, a silent partner who directs your behavior, dismantles your success, and determines your destiny. And you have not yet learned his name. Carl Jung left the modern world a warning that most people have chosen to ignore at their own destruction. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will govern your life, and you will call it fate. You are watching this because you feel it. You feel the friction. You have goals, but you undermine yourself. You desire power, but you act from weakness. You want freedom, but you remain inside the cage. You are exhausted from being the agreeable person who gets stepped on. You are exhausted from the cycle. Here at Carl Jung Psychology, we are going to hand you the keys to the engine room of your psyche. We are going to examine the forbidden philosophy of Carl Jung, not the academic version, but the operationalized version. The version that teaches you how to stop being a puppet and start becoming the architect of your own existence. But consider yourself warned. This is not positive thinking. This is surgery. To heal the patient, we have to cut him open. We are going to confront the parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime concealing. By the end of this, you will understand why being good is a fatal miscalculation, and why becoming whole, including the dark, dangerous territories of yourself, is the only path to becoming truly untouchable. Let us begin. The first territory. The curse of the good man. Observe the modern man. He is harmless. He is courteous. He smiles when insulted. He apologizes when he has done nothing wrong. He suppresses his anger because he has been told that anger is destructive. He suppresses his desire because he has been told that desire is predatory. He is civilized, and he is miserable. Jung argued that this enforced morality is not virtue, it is cowardice. A man who is stripped of his capacity for strength is not peaceful, he is simply powerless. A man incapable of darkness is not good, he is naive. You have been conditioned to believe that your shadow, the dimension of yourself that is aggressive, selfish, ambitious, and dominant, is an adversary that must be destroyed. So you lock it in the basement, you starve it, you convince yourself it does not exist. But the shadow does not perish, it grows hungry. When you suppress your darkness, it does not vanish. It detaches from your ego and operates on its own terms. It becomes what Jung called the possessed state. Have you ever snapped? Have you ever said something so devastating you did not recognize where it originated? Have you ever experienced a sudden, overwhelming wave of despair or dread that paralyzed you completely? That is the shadow breaking through the basement door because you refused to invite it to the table. So it overturned the table entirely. Jung recognized that the most perilous people in the world are not those who acknowledge their darkness. The most perilous people are the pleasant ones, the ones who insist they have no dark side. because they have no conscious relationship with their own capacity for harm. They have no dominion over it. They project it outward onto others. They become passive-aggressive. They become consumed by resentment. They dismantle everything around them while smiling and insisting they mean well. You must cease trying to be a good man. Goodness as a social construct was engineered to make you compliant, manageable, and predictable. Instead, you must pursue becoming a whole man. A whole man has integrated his shadow. He knows he is capable of force, which is precisely why he can choose peace. He knows he is capable of selfishness, which is why his generosity carries genuine weight. You need to descend into the basement and unchain what you have been confining. You need to look it directly in the eye. You need to recognize that it is not a monster. It is your power. It is your drive. It is the dimension of you that refuses to surrender. Without your shadow, you are a toothless wolf. With it, you are a sovereign who keeps a dragon on a leash. The second territory, the persona, the slow erosion of the soul. Every one of us wears masks. Jung called this the persona. It is the face you present to the world in order to be accepted, to be selected, to be desired. The persona is not inherently wrong. You cannot move through life with your soul fully exposed to every stranger and circumstance. You would bleed out. You require a shield. The danger emerges when you forget you are wearing a mask. The danger emerges when the mask fuses permanently to your face. Most of you have become your professional title. You have become the amusing friend, the dependable employee, the self-sacrificing partner. You have engineered a personality that generates external validation. You have refined this mask over years, decades even. But there is an alarming cost to over-identifying with the persona. When you become the mask, you exile the soul. You begin to experience a hollow, aching isolation, even when surrounded by people who claim to love you. Why? Because they do not love you. They love the performance. They love the character you are embodying. They love the mask. And somewhere beneath the surface, you know that if you removed it, if you expressed your actual thoughts, your actual exhaustion, your actual judgments, they would walk away. So you continue performing, and the performance drains you. It transforms into quiet resentment toward the very people you are acting for. Jung observed, the persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is. It is a simulation, a collective hallucination. To become an outlier, you must establish a clear separation. You must treat your persona like tactical armor. You wear it when you step into the world to navigate its demands, to negotiate, to move through social hierarchies, to protect what is private. But when you return home, when you are in solitude, or when you are with the rare few who genuinely matter, you must remove it. You must be willing to be disliked. This is the most precise measure of freedom. If you are incapable of being disliked, you are a prisoner of your persona. You are a servant of the crowd's judgment. The integrated individual uses his persona. He is not consumed by it. He can command a room when it is required, but he does not need the room's applause to confirm his existence. Ask yourself honestly, if I stopped performing today, who would remain? The answer may unsettle you. It may be no one. Good. Let them go. The ones who depart were never with you. They were with the mask. Let the mask dissolve so the actual person underneath can breathe. The third territory, the mirror of projection. This is the most difficult realization to absorb. This is where most people abandon the video, because the ego cannot endure the reflection. Everything that agitates you about other people is a mirror of something you refuse to acknowledge inside yourself. Jung called this projection. When you carry a trait within yourself that you have condemned as shameful or unacceptable, you suppress it. But the psyche cannot contain it indefinitely, so it projects outward onto a surface. That surface is other people. Do you despise arrogant individuals? Do you experience a visceral, burning fury when someone is boasting about their achievements? Ask yourself why. If you were genuinely indifferent, you would see them as merely irritating or foolish. You would not be emotionally commandeered. You resent them because you harbor a suppressed arrogance inside yourself that you are starving into silence. You want to be the one elevated. You want to be the one commanding attention. But your agreeable persona prohibits it. So when you witness someone else claiming that space, your shadow erupts in envy and rage. Do you despise people who appear idle? It is because you are fighting a covert war against your own desperate need for rest. Do you resent calculating people? It is because you are a suppressed strategist who is envious of their freedom to operate without apology. This is the dark map. The people who trigger you most intensely are your most precise teachers. They are revealing exactly what is concealed in your own shadow. Rather than condemning those who provoke you, study them. Ask, what dimension of me is resonating with this? What am I forbidding myself from acknowledging? When you reclaim these projections, you stop being a hostage to your emotional reactions. You become measured. You become clear. When you encounter a domineering person, you do not react. You recognize the drive for significance. You understand the game. You are not destabilized because you have already accepted the ambitious force inside yourself. This renders you resistant to manipulation. The simplest method to control any person is to trigger their self-righteousness, to make them feel morally elevated above the situation. When you integrate your shadow, you no longer require that elevation. You accept that human beings are flawed, complex, and contradictory. And because you accept this in yourself, you can accept it in others. You stop rendering verdicts. You begin observing. And the observer always holds the strategic advantage. The fourth territory. The gold buried in the darkness. We have examined the shadow as a storage space for suppressed aggression and forbidden impulses. But Jung discovered something else concealed in that darkness. The shadow is 90% pure gold. When you were a child, you were likely shamed for qualities that were, in truth, your greatest strengths. Perhaps you were loud and were told to be quiet, so you suppressed your voice. Now you are an adult who is afraid to speak up in professional environments, incapable of establishing clear boundaries. Your power of expression is trapped in the shadow. Perhaps you were curious and rebellious and were instructed to comply, so you suppressed your instinct for innovation. Now you are someone who follows rules that keep you stagnant and unfulfilled. Your capacity for disruption is in the shadow. Perhaps you were emotionally sensitive and were told that feeling deeply was weakness, so you suppressed your intuition. Now you are disconnected, unable to genuinely engage with your own experience or with others. Your depth of feeling is in the shadow. Shadow work is not solely about confronting darkness. It is about recovering your genius. The energy you invest in holding the door shut against your shadow is the same energy you could be channeling into building something extraordinary. Jung recognized that the shadow contains the instinctive forces of the human being. It is the battery. When you stop warring against yourself, you reclaim that energy entirely. Consider what you might accomplish if you were no longer policing your own thoughts at every moment. Consider the magnetic pull you would carry if you were no longer filtering every expression through a layer of social approval. We are drawn to people who have integrated their darkness. We are captivated by individuals who act from genuine conviction, speak without apology, and move without hesitation. That quality originates from integration. Begin expressing what you actually think. Begin pursuing what you actually want. Stop seeking permission. The moment you stop apologizing for your existence, the world begins to acknowledge your presence. The fifth territory, the Anima, the inner dimension. Jung identified a specific structural vulnerability in the psyche, a weakness in the architecture that, if left unaddressed, dismantles even the most formidable individuals from the inside. He called it the Anima. This is the feminine dimension of the male unconscious. Before you respond defensively, understand clearly, this has nothing to do with sexuality. This is pure psychology. Every man carries a feminine counterpart in his unconscious. It governs his emotional life, his shifting moods, his capacity for genuine connection, and his relationship to the irrational dimensions of experience. If you deny the Anima, if you pretend to be a construction of pure logic and impenetrability, she will eventually possess you. You have witnessed this man. He is a composed, analytical professional throughout the day, but when he returns home, or when romantic feeling enters his life, he transforms into someone unrecognizable. He becomes volatile, hypersensitive, and erratic. He develops an obsessive attachment to someone who treats him poorly. He is anima-possessed because he has suppressed his emotional world entirely. and that world now operates without his conscious participation. He projects his anima onto real women. He pursues a goddess, a rescuer, an ideal. And when the actual woman inevitably fails to embody the projection, he turns against her with equal intensity. This is the psychological root of destructive attachment. The anima-possessed man is compromised because his internal state dictates his entire external reality. He possesses no emotional stability because he has no conscious relationship with his own interior life. To become an outlier, you must develop the capacity to observe your moods rather than be consumed by them. When a sudden darkness descends, or an irrational fixation takes hold, do not say, "I am depressed," or "I am obsessed." Instead, say, "My anima is active." Separate from it. Watch it. Engage with it deliberately. Jung himself conversed with his anima, treating her as a distinct interior presence. He asked what she required. He negotiated. This may appear unorthodox to those encountering it for the first time. In practice, it is one of the most sophisticated forms of psychological self-governance available to a human being. A man who has integrated his anima is formidable in the most complete sense. He is precise and analytical when the situation demands it, but he can read the emotional architecture of any room instantly. He understands people not as unknowable mysteries, but as reflections of dimensions he already carries internally. He cannot be manipulated through surface appeal alone, because he already possesses that depth within himself. He is whole. And because he is whole, he does not need another person to complete him. He desires a partner to accompany him on the journey. That distinction is the entire distance between dependency and sovereignty, between a desperate boy and a man who knows exactly who he is. The sixth territory, synchronicity, the feedback system of reality. We are now moving beyond conventional psychology into territory that disturbs the rigidly rational mind. Jung made a discovery that genuinely unsettled the scientific establishment of his era. He observed that when a patient underwent an authentic internal transformation, when they integrated a shadow dimension or dismantled a deeply conditioned behavioral pattern, the external world would reorganize to reflect that shift. A patient described a dream featuring a golden scarab beetle. At that precise moment, a rare golden scarab tapped against the glass of Jung's office window. He called this synchronicity, an acausal connecting principle. It is the recognition that the interior mind and the external world are not two separate operating systems. They function as mirrors of each other. When you are fragmented internally, your external life expresses that fragmentation. You attract chaotic relationships. You encounter what appears to be persistent misfortune. You seem to meet resistance everywhere you turn. You interpret this as the world opposing you. It is not. The world is reflecting you. But when you integrate, when you engage in genuine shadow work, when you move toward wholeness, the mirror changes. You begin to experience what appears to be extraordinary alignment. Opportunities arrive without force. The right conversation happens at the exact right moment. You step into a space, and something in the atmosphere shifts in your favor. It feels like fortune. It is not fortune. It is resonance. This is the deeper reason why relentless external activity without internal work yields diminishing returns. Relentless effort with a fractured psyche is like pressing the accelerator while the handbrake is fully engaged. You generate heat, produce noise, and remain stationary. Resolve the internal architecture first. When you dissolve the subconscious obstructions, when you stop warring against your own nature, you become aerodynamic. You move through your life with dramatically reduced resistance. Pay close attention to the recurring patterns in your experience. They are not random noise. They are signals, the feedback system of your own deeper nature communicating with you. If your environment is saturated with deception, locate the dishonesty you are tolerating in yourself. If your environment is expansive and generative, recognize the internal state that is producing it. You are the projector. The world is the screen. If you are dissatisfied with what is being projected, do not attack the screen. Change what is in the projector. Before we continue, if synchronicity is already at work in your life, you know it. You have been seeing numbers that feel like signals. 777 appearing at precise moments of decision. 1111 surfacing at thresholds when something is ending and something is beginning. Leave that number in the comments below, not as a superstition, as an acknowledgement. Jung's framework tells us that these recurring symbols are the language through which the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind. Synchronicity does not speak in complete sentences. It speaks in patterns. What pattern has been appearing in your life? The seventh territory. Individuation, the only journey worth completing. The hero's journey is not a metaphor extracted from ancient literature. It is a psychological blueprint drawn from the actual structure of human development. Jung did not believe we arrive in the world as finished beings. He believed we arrive as raw material. The purpose of a human life is not the accumulation of comfort or the sustained achievement of pleasant feeling. The purpose is individuation. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming the single, irreducible, undivided individual you were always meant to be. It is a demanding, disorienting, and profoundly solitary ascent. It requires you to separate yourself from the collective, not out of arrogance, but out of integrity. Most people never individuate. They remain embedded in the collective unconscious, absorbing their perspectives from mass media, inheriting their values from unexamined tradition, importing their desires from commercial culture. They live and eventually cease as reproductions of other people's lives. To individuate is to commit a form of treason against the average. It means accepting that you will be misunderstood by people who once felt close. It means accepting that you will outlive certain relationships and communities. It means walking into terrain where no established trail exists, because if a path is already there, it was carved by someone else's journey, not yours. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But every privilege carries a price. The price of this one is the willingness to surrender the comfort of a familiar identity. You must be willing to allow the previous version of yourself to dissolve. Psychological death is not destruction, it is transformation. The version of you constructed by external approval must dissolve for the version defined by internal authority to emerge. The version of you shaped by accumulated fear must be relinquished for the version defined by genuine capability to take its place. You are carrying configurations that no longer serve who you are becoming. You are dragging the accumulated weight of an identity constructed for circumstances that have already ended. Set it down. Enter the space of not yet knowing who you are, because in that precise uncertainty, in that unresolved and open territory, the alchemy occurs. The new self is not found, it is forged. This is the hero's journey. It is not a story in a book. It is the actual architecture of your life. And in this moment, you are standing at the threshold. The invitation is reaching you right now. The only question remaining is whether you will accept it or return to sleep. The eighth territory, the danger of unearned wisdom. A necessary warning before we close. Jung wrote, "Beware of unearned wisdom. Information without integration is not illumination. It is the illusion of it." Watching this video generates a sensation of capability. It provides a cognitive rush. You feel as though you have accessed something significant and rare. But knowing the path and walking the path are entirely distinct experiences, separated by the distance between who you currently are and who you are genuinely capable of becoming. If you take these concepts, shadow, anima, projection, individuation, and use them only to analyze other people, to project sophistication in social situations, to diagnose the behavior of those who have caused you pain, you are misapplying the knowledge. You are using it to expand the ego, not to build the soul. This is the recurring trap of the person who studies everything and changes nothing. Who knows the precise topography of the mountain, but has never moved a single step toward it? Who remains at the base, articulate about the summit view, having never left the ground? Do not be that person. Shadow work is not a philosophy. It is a daily practice, uncomfortable, unglamorous, and frequently humbling. It is the discipline of catching yourself mid-justification and choosing honesty instead. It is sitting in genuine silence when every instinct is pushing you toward distraction. It is permitting yourself to feel the specific pain you have been successfully avoiding for years or decades. This does not produce external admiration. It does not translate into visible status. But the reward is something more durable than admiration. The reward is reality, direct, unmediated, unfiltered contact with your own existence. So how do you begin? You do not require a therapist. You do not require a guide. You require a notebook, committed honesty, and the willingness to be disturbed by what you discover about yourself. The Shadow Journal. Every time you experience an irrational emotional response, rage, envy, contempt, fixation, write it down without justification. Do not construct an explanation for why the other person was wrong. Ask only, what does this response reveal about me? The answer will always point towards something concealed in the shadow. follow that pointing. The emotion is not the adversary. It is the signal. The persona audit. Identify the roles you are currently performing: the accommodating son, the self-contained professional, the person who never creates difficulty. Which role feels most like an extended performance? Which one consumes the most energy to maintain? Select that mask and dismantle it, deliberately, incrementally. Stop laughing at things that do not genuinely amuse you. Stop agreeing when you mean the opposite. Stop extending warmth toward people you actually distrust. Observe who remains after the performance ends. Those individuals are your actual community. The interior dialogue. When you are overtaken by a mood, a depression, or an irrational preoccupation, stop completely. Close your eyes. Visualize the state as a distinct internal figure. Engage with it directly. Ask what it requires. Listen without judgment. Negotiate. Jung practiced this not as a creative exercise, but as a genuine method of psychological self-governance. The interior world is not a distraction from real life. It is the architecture beneath real life. The active imagination. Create space for genuine silence. Invite the dimensions of yourself you have been most determined to avoid. The ambitious one. The one who contains undirected force. The one who carries desires you have never permitted yourself to fully acknowledge. Do not attempt to eliminate these internal figures. Extend recognition to them. Ask what capability they carry that you have been refusing to access. Those exiled energies contain precisely what you need in order to move forward with full force. Jung observed that the ancient forces, strength, love, power, transformation, did not vanish when civilization emerged. They simply relocated inward. When you deny the force of will, you generate anxiety that has no apparent source. When you deny the force of connection, you generate obsessive attachment to inadequate substitutes. When you deny the force of authentic expression, you generate self-undermining behavior that appears to have no logic. You are not suffering from a clinical category alone. In the Jungian framework, you are experiencing a spiritual civil war, a structure divided against itself. The resolution is not external. The resolution is integration, a treaty between the interior dimensions that have been warring beneath the surface of your daily life. This is the path of the outlier. While the rest of the world is actively fleeing its own interior, consuming to numb, scrolling to avoid, performing to feel real, you will do the opposite. You will turn and face the cave. You will move toward what has been pursuing you through the corridors of your unconscious. And when you arrive at what you feared most, you will find that it was never your enemy. It was simply the part of yourself that contained everything you actually needed to become who you are. This is not about achieving happiness. Happiness is a condition that arrives and departs on its own schedule. This is about becoming real. Real things carry weight. Real things endure across time and circumstance. Real things cannot be dismantled by opinion or misfortune or the relentless pressure of other people's expectations. The shadow is present. It has always been present. The stranger in your house has been waiting, not for a convenient moment, not for the right conditions, but for your decision to finally open the door. The clock does not pause. The call does not repeat indefinitely. You have two choices available to you right now in this moment. You can return to the comfortable architecture of the life you already know, the predictable rhythms, the familiar performance, the slow and painless drift. Or you can wake up fully and begin. Most will choose the former. That has always been true and will remain true. But you, if you have stayed with this until this sentence, you are not most people. You have already heard the knock. You cannot unhear it now. Open the door. That is where your actual life begins. If this reached something real in you, if you felt the recognition, subscribe to Carl Jung Psychology. There is significantly more waiting for you on this channel, and it is all here for the moment you decide you are ready for it.